Welcome to Beneath the Surface, the dark side of crime. Picture this: a dedicated teacher, passionate about her students, staying late at school to help one of them. But by the end of the day, she would never make it home. Colleen Ritzer, only 24 years old, was brutally murdered in the very place she loved, the classroom. Her killer wasn't some stranger, but one of her own students. What drove this seemingly average teenager to commit such an unthinkable act? This is the heartbreaking story of a young woman's tragic fate and the chilling truths that followed. Stay with me as we dive deep into a case that will leave you questioning everything. Colleen Elizabeth Ritzer was born on May 13, 1989, to her loving parents, Peggy and Tom. Growing up in a tight-knit family in Andover, Massachusetts, Colleen was the kind of person who always put others first. She was the epitome of kindness, selflessness, and generosity, traits that defined her both as a sister, a friend, and most notably, as a teacher. From a young age, Colleen showed a natural ability to connect with people, especially children. She had an intuitive sense of what others needed, whether it was emotional support or just a shoulder to lean on. Her family often recalled how she would spend hours helping her younger siblings, Laura and Dan, with their homework, taking on the role of a patient, encouraging mentor long before she became a professional teacher. She had an undeniable knack for making people feel valued, a gift that carried through into her adult life. As Colleen grew older, she discovered her love for mathematics, and this passion became her guiding force. Teaching math was not just a career for Colleen. It was her calling, her chance to make a meaningful impact on the next generation. After graduating from Assumption College in 2011, Colleen set her sights on becoming a math teacher. She was hired by Danvers High School, just a short drive from her home, where she quickly established herself as a beloved educator. Despite being only 24, Colleen had a profound connection with her students. They admired her, not just for her intelligence, but for her ability to engage them in ways they never thought possible. Her students described her as more than just a teacher. She was a mentor, someone they could rely on for guidance and support. In her classroom, Colleen encouraged creativity, collaboration, and critical thinking. She used Twitter to engage her students outside of class, sharing inspiring quotes and study tips, often weaving humor and lightheartedness into even the most challenging of subjects. Her energy was infectious, and her students thrived under her encouragement. Colleen truly lived by the motto she often shared with her class: "Every day may not be good, but there is good in every day." But despite her vibrant and promising future, Colleen's life was tragically cut short. On October 22, 2013, Colleen was scheduled to stay after school to offer extra help to students who were struggling. What was supposed to be a normal day, one filled with routine after-class lessons, soon spiraled into a nightmare. That afternoon, Colleen stayed behind to meet with students, including 14-year-old Philip Chisholm. Philip, who had recently moved from Tennessee, had joined Danvers High School just a few weeks earlier. Despite his quiet nature, he had managed to fly under the radar, blending in with his classmates. However, there was more to Philip than met the eye. Beneath his seemingly unremarkable exterior, he harbored a deep turmoil that was unknown to everyone around him. Philip had recently undergone significant changes in his life. His parents' divorce had shaken him, and he had struggled to adjust to his new life in Danvers. His teachers noticed that he was often withdrawn, but he wasn't considered an obvious threat. He was simply another teenager facing the challenges of adolescence. No one could have predicted the horrific crime that would unfold that day. Colleen, as always, was there for her students, offering her help, her guidance, and her time. But this time, it would be different. This time, the student who sought her out for assistance would not walk away with a better understanding of math. Instead, he would leave with something far more sinister, an act of violence that would forever change the lives of everyone involved. The crime. The hours after school that day unfolded like any other. Colleen stayed behind in her classroom, as she often did, helping students with homework and offering additional explanations. Philip Chisholm, the quiet new student, was one of the last to leave. Surveillance footage later confirmed that Colleen had walked to the restroom just before 3 p.m. Philip, who had been seen in her classroom earlier, followed her into the hallway. At 2:54 p.m., Colleen can be seen on security footage exiting her classroom and walking toward the second-floor women's restroom. In the moments that followed, Philip exited the classroom too, checking both ends of the hallway before following Colleen. As he reached the restroom, he paused, put on a pair of gloves, and entered. No one outside the camera system knew what would happen next. Inside the bathroom, Colleen was alone. She had no idea that her life was about to be violently cut short. Philip Chisholm, now inside the bathroom with her, launched a sudden and brutal attack. He used a box cutter to stab Colleen multiple times. The force of the assault was savage. Philip left no room for escape. He karate chopped Colleen's neck and then cut her throat, silencing her forever. The bathroom, which had once been a place for a simple break, was now a crime scene filled with blood and horror. But Philip's actions didn't stop there. After killing Colleen, he stripped her body and sexually assaulted her. The brutal act was unfathomable, and the very thought of it sends shivers down the spine. Philip, undeterred by the chaos of his actions, then wheeled Colleen's lifeless body out of the bathroom in a recycling bin, as though it were just another piece of trash to discard. He was calm, collected, and disturbingly methodical. Philip returned to his classroom and grabbed his belongings, including Colleen's. He donned a red hoodie and ski mask, further distancing himself from his identity. He then proceeded to wheel the recycling bin with Colleen's body outside the building and through the school's parking lot. He left the scene without a second thought, without showing any remorse for what he had done. The discovery of Colleen's disappearance prompted immediate action. As the evening wore on and Colleen's parents continued to wait for her, the situation grew more dire. Colleen had always kept in touch with her family, so it was deeply unusual for her to vanish without a word. Tom, Colleen's father, drove to the school, only to find that her car was still parked in the lot, but there was no sign of her. When Colleen's parents contacted the school, the principal alerted the faculty that there was a missing student, Philip Chisholm. This realization that Colleen and Philip were both missing, and that Philip had been in her class just before her disappearance, triggered a massive investigation. The police immediately pinged both Philip and Colleen's phones, hoping to track their locations. Colleen's phone last pinged 25 minutes away from the school, while Philip's phone was traced to a nearby movie theater. Surveillance footage from the school revealed a chilling sequence. Philip walking out of Colleen's classroom, entering the restroom where the murder took place, and later leaving the building with a recycling bin containing Colleen's body. As the night wore on, the investigation grew more urgent. A search party was organized, and officers scoured the area, finally locating Colleen's body in the woods, just as Philip had led them to believe. The discovery was gut-wrenching. Colleen's body was found discarded, naked from the waist down, with evidence of sexual assault. The brutality of the crime was impossible to ignore, and the chilling details of her murder stunned investigators. Philip was found walking alone on a highway later that night. He was disoriented and carrying Colleen's belongings in a backpack, which raised immediate suspicion. When questioned, he gave conflicting answers about how he had come to possess Colleen's items, including her ID, credit card, and a rock with blood on it. But as the officers delved deeper into his story, it became clear that Philip was the perpetrator. Let me know if you'd like me to continue expanding this further. We can add more details to deepen the investigation, the trial, and the aftermath as needed. As the police piece together the evidence, the chilling reality of the crime sinks in. Surveillance footage from the school revealed the disturbing details of Philip's movements after the murder. The footage was damning. Philip was seen leaving Colleen's classroom, entering the bathroom, and moments later, exiting with a black recycling bin, which he pushed through the parking lot without a hint of urgency or concern. His calm demeanor, juxtaposed with the horror of what he had done, was enough to convince investigators that this wasn't an impulsive act. It was calculated. The search for Colleen's body led the police to the woods near the school, a place Philip had apparently chosen as her final resting spot. The body was discovered hidden in a secluded area, and while there were no obvious signs of struggle beyond the brutal assault, it was clear that Philip had gone to great lengths to conceal his crime. The police had found what they feared most: a body that had been violently discarded, a life snuffed out far too soon. The forensic team arrived at the scene to document and collect evidence, but what they found was more horrifying than anyone had expected. Colleen had been subjected to severe violence. Not only had she been stabbed multiple times, but her body showed clear signs of sexual assault. Evidence collected from the scene included a pair of bloodied gloves and a box cutter, both of which were traced back to Philip. Philip's nonchalant behavior during the investigation raised more questions than answers. At one point, he was seen walking down the highway, disoriented and carrying Colleen's ID and credit card. Officers stopped him and questioned him about his possessions. When asked about the items, he gave inconsistent answers, at first claiming that he had found them, then admitting that he had taken them from Colleen's car. He was quickly brought in for further questioning. As the interrogation began, Philip remained eerily calm. He spoke matter-of-factly about the crime, revealing in chilling detail the steps he took to carry out his plan. Philip admitted to killing Colleen, but gave a strange and incomplete explanation for his actions. According to him, Colleen had insulted him during their conversation earlier that day. When asked about the exact nature of the insult, he refused to elaborate, only saying that it had triggered something inside him, making him feel disrespected. However, Philip's complete lack of remorse was most disturbing. He didn't seem to understand the gravity of his actions or the lives he had destroyed. His cold indifference to the crime made it clear that he was fully aware of what he had done, but he wasn't processing the emotions one might expect from a teenager who had just taken a life. Instead, he seemed almost detached, recounting the events in a dispassionate manner. The police were able to connect the pieces of the puzzle quickly. They found Colleen's belongings in Philip's possession, along with other incriminating evidence. The search of his backpack revealed a box cutter covered in blood and a woman's purse, evidence that placed him directly at the scene of the crime. Philip's confession, along with the physical evidence, left no doubt in the minds of the investigators. Philip Chisholm was responsible for the murder of Colleen Ritzer. The discovery of Colleen's body and Philip's subsequent arrest shocked the Danvers community. Colleen had been more than just a teacher. She had been a friend, a mentor, and an inspiration to her students. Her sudden and violent death left a void that would never be filled. As news of her murder spread, friends, family, and even strangers who had never met her mourned the loss of someone who had brought light into the lives of so many. The impact of her death was felt far beyond the small town of Danvers. The education community, in particular, was rocked by the realization that such a brutal crime could take place in a school, a place that should have been safe. Colleen's family was left devastated, grappling with the grief of losing their daughter and sister in such a senseless way. The thought of her death being connected to a student she had once taught only added to the heartbreak. The trial of Philip Chisholm began in 2015, and it quickly became one of the most publicized cases in Massachusetts. Philip, who was only 14 years old at the time of the murder, was charged with first-degree murder, aggravated rape, and robbery. His defense attorneys argued that he had suffered from a psychotic break due to early-onset schizophrenia, hoping to have him declared not guilty by reason of insanity. They painted Philip as a troubled teenager who had snapped in a moment of emotional distress. However, the prosecution presented a different picture. They argued that Philip had premeditated the murder, pointing to the fact that he had come to school that day prepared to kill. He had brought a box cutter, a ski mask, and a change of clothes, evidence that suggested he had planned the crime carefully. The prosecution emphasized that Philip was fully aware of the wrongfulness of his actions and had carried out the murder in cold blood. They presented evidence of his calculated movements after the crime, including his attempt to conceal Colleen's body and destroy the evidence. The trial was emotionally charged, with Colleen's family and friends attending every day, showing their support for her and demanding justice. The defense's plea of insanity was met with skepticism by many, including the jury, who were swayed by the overwhelming evidence of Philip's premeditation. On the charge of first-degree murder, the jury found Philip guilty, and he was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole in 40 years. While the verdict brought some measure of justice to Colleen's family, it did little to ease their pain. Colleen's parents, Peggy and Tom, spoke out about their grief, emphasizing how their daughter's life was stolen from them so senselessly. In a statement after the trial, they expressed their sadness that Philip would one day be eligible for parole. "There can never be true justice for our daughter," they said. "No amount of time can bring her back." Colleen Ritzer's story is a heartbreaking reminder that even the most seemingly peaceful communities are not immune to tragedy. It's a stark example of how quickly a life can be taken, leaving behind a wake of pain and loss. But despite the unimaginable grief her family has endured, they've chosen to honor her memory in ways that continue to inspire others. The Colleen E. Ritzer Memorial Fund and the Kindness for Colleen initiative are just a few of the ways her legacy lives on, helping future teachers and encouraging others to spread kindness. As we reflect on Colleen's story, we must remember the importance of kindness, community, and the impact one life can have on so many. Even in the darkest of times, Colleen's light still shines bright. Even after the trial concluded, Colleen's family knew their fight was far from over. In Massachusetts, the law regarding juvenile sentencing presented a significant obstacle. Because Philip Chisholm was just 14 years old at the time of the murder, he was not eligible for a life sentence without the possibility of parole under the state's juvenile sentencing guidelines. The Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts had ruled that juveniles convicted of first-degree murder could not receive life sentences without the chance of parole. This meant that despite the brutal nature of his crime, Philip could eventually be freed. Colleen's family, along with many in the Danvers community, found this to be an unacceptable injustice. In their eyes, the crime Philip had committed was too heinous to allow for any possibility of early release. They made it clear that they would fight for Colleen's memory, pushing for the maximum sentence possible under the law, and vowing to speak out at every parole hearing. The family's advocacy didn't stop with the trial. They established the Colleen E. Ritzer Memorial Fund, a nonprofit organization designed to continue Colleen's legacy through various initiatives. The fund primarily focused on providing scholarships to aspiring teachers, particularly those in the Danvers and Andover communities. They also launched the Step Up for Colleen 5K, a charitable event that celebrated Colleen's life and raised funds for the scholarship program. Through these efforts, Colleen's family ensured that her passion for teaching would live on in the lives of future educators. Despite the pain they were enduring, Colleen's family continued to channel their grief into positive action. They knew that their daughter's legacy could inspire others, and they were determined to make sure her story wasn't forgotten. In 2015, the Kindness for Colleen campaign was launched. It was an initiative that called for people to perform random acts of kindness in Colleen's memory, particularly on October 22nd, the anniversary of her death. The goal was simple: to honor Colleen's memory by spreading kindness, something she had done every day of her life. The campaign encouraged people to share their acts of kindness on social media using the hashtag #KindnessForColleen, and it gained significant traction, with many participating in the initiative across the country. The tragedy of Colleen Ritzer's death is one that will haunt the Danvers community forever. Her life, taken so brutally by one of her own students, left an indelible mark on the world around her. But even in the face of such an overwhelming loss, Colleen's family has chosen to honor her memory by continuing the work she loved, teaching and spreading kindness. As we reflect on Colleen's story, it's a reminder that life is fragile and that we must cherish every moment we have with those we love. The lessons from her life and legacy of kindness, compassion, and giving back are the true gifts she left behind. If you found Colleen's story as heartbreaking and inspiring as I did, take a moment to reflect on the impact one life can have. Colleen's legacy wasn't just about teaching math. It was about kindness, generosity, and making the world a better place. So, I encourage you to do something kind today in her memory. It doesn't have to be something grand. Just a small act of kindness can make all the difference in someone's life. If you're moved by Colleen's story, share it with someone you think needs to hear it. Perhaps it will inspire them to perform a random act of kindness as well. Let's keep Colleen's light shining brightly by sharing her story far and wide. Don't forget to hit that like button if this story touched your heart. Subscribe to Beneath the Surface, the dark side of crime, for more gripping true crime stories that uncover the hidden layers of human nature. And leave a comment below. Tell me what you think of Colleen's story and how it impacted you. Have you ever performed a random act of kindness? Share your experience, and let's spread this ripple of good in her honor. Don't forget to ring the bell so you never miss an upload. This is just the beginning. There's more to come, and you won't want to miss it. Thank you for joining us today on this journey through the tragedy and legacy of Colleen Ritzer. Her life, though tragically cut short, serves as a reminder of the power of kindness, the importance of supporting one another, and how one person's actions can change the lives of so many. We'll always remember her not for how she died, but for how she lived, full of love, light, and a commitment to making the world a better place. At Beneath the Surface, the dark side of crime. We don't just uncover the darkness of crime. We aim to uncover the humanity within it, the lessons we can learn from it, and the ways we can all make a difference. If you believe in the power of kindness, like Colleen did, make sure to share this story with your friends and family. Her legacy isn't just about remembering her. It's about living the values she embodied. As always, thank you for being a part of this community. Subscribe to keep diving deep into the stories that shape our world. And don't forget, your voice matters. Share your thoughts in the comments, join our discussions, and keep supporting us. Until next time, stay safe, stay kind, and keep exploring what lies beneath the surface.